હવે અવાજ ના કરશો કે Hi, very good morning. I'm Dr. Janak Patel. Today I'm discussing on one of the part of treatment in management of diabetes mellitus type 2 variety, particularly in selection of oral hypoglycemic agents. We have already mentioned some of those things in a previous lecture, that is management of diabetes. But this I would like to take it because to select a drug, your basic concept should be very, very clear. So we are going to talk on guidelines and how you select which drugs to select according to the recent guidelines. So we'll be talking on those particular recent guidelines. So always there is a dilemma, which guideline to be used, and during those guidelines, there are few things which are being only covered in those guidelines. That is atherosclerotic cardiovascular disorders, heart failure, CKD. Some include GI tract, some does not include GI tract, hypoglycemia, weight, cost. Age is not included in majority of the criteria. Very few guidelines is including age, but there are many more factors which should be included while selecting a drug. We'll be going through that. Now this is one what is very important, but we never follow this particular. We call goal of care. That is, we want to prevent complication and we want to optimize the quality of life. For that, you have to assess the patient characteristics like lifestyles, comorbid condition like CKD, heart failure, cerebrovascular disease, ASCVD, clinical criteria like age, HbA1c, weight, then motivation, depression, culture and socio-economic context, etc. should be looked at, and then you consider the specific factors that can impact the choice of treatment like HbA1c targets, impact on weight, hypoglycemia, side effects profile of medications, then frequency, mode of administration, because good number of people do not prefer to have multiple dose, as well as they do not want injectables. Choose of regime to optimize the adherence and persistence, assess the cost and availability of the medication. Say you prescribe the medication which is very costly and person is non-affording, again he will not take those medication. As well as if the medication is not available freely, again he will skip those doses. Share the decision. Now whatever you have planned out, now you will have to discuss with the patient. Involve and educate and inform the patient regarding what treatment you are deciding. Seek the patient preference. Effective consultant includes motivation, interview, goal setting, share the decision making, then empower the patient, ensure the access to all those things what you can help him out. Then once he agrees on the management plan, we call SMART, that is specific, measurable, achievable, realistic and time limited. So try to select that particular plan. So in how much time you want your HbA1c target to be controlled, what are the drugs you are going to select, all those you have to discuss with the person. Then you have to implement the management plan. And every 3 months, you look at whether you are achieving the goal or not. Then ongoing monitoring should be done, like on emotional well-being, check tolerability of the medication, monitor glycemic control, and also you should have a feedback by SMBG, weight, step the counts like HbA1c, blood pressure, lipids, etc. All this should be monitored at a regular intervals. Then you review again an agreement on the plan. Review the management plan. Mutual agreement should be done. Ensure that agreed modification of the therapy is implemented in a timely fashion to avoid clinical inertia. And cycle understanding at a regular interval, at least once or twice a year, should be done. All those things are included in goal of care. we do not go through all these steps. It is extremely difficult to, in India, it is extremely difficult to cooperate and explain the person regarding all this matter. It is very, very difficult. But still, this is the best way. That's why it is called decision cycle for patient centered. So you have to discuss with the patient and then decide what line of treatment you want to undergo. But we are taking for granted you have discussed with your patient, etc. And now what you are going to decide. This is a wonderful chart. This chart shows you all the different groups of medications. What are the common complications which you will come across? So keeping those things in mind, it will help you a lot. So say we take it one by one group. Metformin, usually as far as hypoglycemia is concerned, it is called neutral. Means very rarely you get hypoglycemia. By and large, you don't get hypoglycemia. As far as the weight gain is concerned, there is no weight gain on the top. We also call that it is a weight neutral. Sometime, because of little decrease in the appetite, person will have a slight loss of weight. So it is a beneficial effect. That's why it is shown in a green. As far as the contraindication in renal and gastrointestinal tract array, genitourinary tract is concerned, it is contraindicated in stage 4 and 5. So if a person is in grade 4 and 5 of CKD, metformin should not be used. This is the only drawback. As far as the GI tract is concerned, there is a mild side effect as far as GI tract, loss of appetite, little nausea, occasional vomiting, etc. But can be easily avoided if you split up the dose and you give after a meal. By and large, when you give after a meal, majority of the GI tract side effects are avoided. As far as the cardiac benefit is concerned, congestive heart failure, ASCVD, that is what we call as atherosclerotic cardiovascular disorder, it is beneficial because it also helps in decreasing LDL level, decreasing TG level also. So, and as far as congestive heart failure is concerned, it is neutral. As far as bone is concerned, there is no osteoporosis and no chance of fracture. Indirectly, metformin becomes the one of the very good drug, or we call first drug of choice for any person with type 2 diabetes mellitus. Any person with type 2 diabetes mellitus. And one another additional advantage of metformin, it can be combined with any one of this medication. Any one of this medication. So metformin becomes, only drawback is in a CKD grade 4 and 5, or we call stage 4 and 5, it should not be used. And also I'll add one more. In a person with severe congestive heart failure with a shock stage, it should not be used because it can end up with lactic acid acidosis. So these are the two main disadvantages of metformin. Now second group of drug we call as GLP-1 receptor agonist. Now these particular drugs are available in an injectable form. There are two types of drugs. One, short acting, we call extended, and long acting, we call liraglutide. So those particular drug has to be given once in a week, etc. So depending upon those particular, but only drawback of that is a cost factor, which is not included here. It is very costly. Hence, in the poor people or lower socioeconomic group of people, this cannot be utilized. Otherwise, as far as hypoglycemia is concerned, it is neutral. So there is no chance of hypoglycemia with GLP-1 receptor agonist. Weight wise, there is a remarkable loss in weight. So in an obese individual and person in which you want to bring down the BMI, it is a wonderful drug. As far as a genitourinary tract is concerned and renal, it cannot be used in a person with creatinine or what we call as a stage 4 and 5. And if the GFR is less than 30, it should not be used. By and large, it should be avoided. As far as side effect is concerned, very common, nausea, vomiting and GI tract upsets. Cardiac benefit is wonderful because it is very good as far as ASCVD is concerned and congestive heart failure is also concerned. It is a very good drug. So It has been proven to have a cardiac safety. And as far as bone is concerned, no osteoporosis, no fractures. So this is another drug of choice, and this has become now second line of treatment after metformin. But only drawback is cost factor, and second is CKD, grade or we call stage 4 and 5. SGLT2 inhibitor is another drug which is very indicated nowadays, and because of now the recent drugs, that is remogliflozin, which has come in market and which is relatively cheaper. So slowly it will be replacing good number of drug. Now this particular drug is directly acting on the kidney. So only drawback is in case of a person with a GFR which is markedly low, they say that below 50, little question mark. But now they say that even with 30, you can still use it, but less than 30, you don't use it. Another drawback, because it produces glycosuria, there is lot of polyuria along with glycosuria. And because of that, there is a very high chance of genital infection, particularly mycotic infection. And it is very common in female, also common in male also. And this is the major drawback. So if a proper precaution is taken, that have a plenty of fluids orally and have a good hygiene of a genital organs, this can be easily avoided. So it becomes a second another good drug. It scores over GLP-1 receptor agonist, and because of glycosuria, there is even a weight loss. Now this is very good effect. Because of glycosuria, the urine output is more, blood volume decreases, volume overload on the heart decreases. So it is a wonderful drug even for congestive heart failure, and it has been proven to be very effective and benefit. It is called cardio benefit in a person who has got congestive heart failure. So this drug has now become one of the very good drugs, and that's why SGLT2 now scores over GLP-1 receptor agonist, because it is much cheaper as compared to GLP-1. And another, this is oral drug, this is injectable form only. So this becomes a wonderful drug. Now the fourth drug group, actually it belongs to what we call as the incretin mimetics. We call DPP-4 inhibitors. We call all gliptins we call. These are glifazone, remogliflozin, DEPA, EMPA, KENA, glifosine groups. Well, this is all gliptins. So hypoglycemia, minimal chances, or we call neutral. As far as weight loss is concerned, usually there is no weight gain, but there is no weight loss also. So little disadvantage over these three. As far as the dose adjustment is concerned, in some of the groups you require, but tenaligliptin, linagliptin, you don't require a dose adjustment. As far as GI tract side effect is concerned, almost no GI tract side effects. Cardiac safety wise, it is neutral. Bone osteoporosis and fracture wise, again neutral. Hence, this is another drug which is in market and relatively cheaper. Now relatively cheaper. Now there are good number of drugs which has become very cheap as far as DPP-4 inhibitors are concerned, and this becomes now the drug of choice. Vildagliptin cost has come down. Tenali is as such cheaper. So vildagliptin and tenalagliptin are now the drug of choice from DPP-4 inhibitor. As far as the Vilda is concerned, in a case of CKD, you will require to decrease the dose. You will have to cut down to half the dose. So these are the three drugs which are second line of treatment after metformin. As far as alpha glucosidase inhibitor is concerned, it does not produce hypoglycemia, so it is neutral. As far as the weight loss is concerned, hardly it produces weight loss. So at least there is no weight gain, so again it is neutral. As far as renal safety is concerned, again it is neutral. You can use it even in the person with a CKD. GI tract side effect is concerned, there are good number of GI tract side effects like bloating sensation, dyspepsia, nausea. Some person can get even a diarrhea, etc. So this is a major drawback as far as the alpha glucosidase inhibitor is concerned. If we consider the cost factor, it is costly. And as far as the cardiovascular safety is concerned, it is neutral, but not proven to be absolutely cardiovascular safe. As far as the bone is concerned, no osteoporosis, no fracture. So this becomes another drug of choice, but this is useful only for postprandial control. It is not having any effect on a fasting blood sugar. So remember that if a fasting blood sugar is high, AGI, or we call alpha glucosidase inhibitor, that is voglibose, miglitol and acarbose, they will not be effective, and they have to be given before meals, not during meals or after meals. So by and large, voglibose can be given just before you start taking meal. Put the pill in the oral, over the tongue, and then you can have a meal. So alpha glucosidase inhibitor, if given after a meal, the effect will be less. So do remember this. Then comes what we call as a TZD or thiazolidine, or we call pioglitazones. Now as far as the pioglitazone is concerned, they are very useful for reducing insulin resistance. So for reduction of insulin resistance, metformin, second drug of choice is pioglitazones. But there are a lot of drawbacks in pioglitazones. There is weight gain. So that is a major drawback, and hence cannot be utilized in a person with a cardiac like congestive heart failure. So it is a major contraindication in a person with ischemic heart disease, congestive heart failure, or where the ejection fraction is low. So these two become the major drawbacks. As well as it is one of the drug which will produce osteoporosis, and the fracture chances will be very high, particularly in female and in a postmenopausal age. So postmenopausal female, congestive heart failure, ischemic heart disease, low ejection fraction, and weight gain, that is sodium and water retention, are major contraindication as far as the pioglitazone is concerned. Otherwise, as far as the renal safety is concerned, GI tract is concerned, it is neutral, but the cost is not very high. But these are the two major contraindication: weight gain and congestive heart failure. And in female, menopausal, postmenopausal female, because of osteoporosis and fracture, becomes the third contraindication. Sulfonylurea, it is called the drug for poor people. So sulfonylurea, hypoglycemia chance is very high, and particularly if you use glipizide, glibenclamide, which is a long-acting drugs. So those are absolutely now out of market, and those should not be utilized in a person. But glimepiride, gliclazide, and glibenclamide has got relatively less incidence of hypoglycemia, but still there is a chance of hypoglycemia. So this becomes the major contraindication as far as sulfonylurea is concerned. Because of hypoglycemia, person will have a repeated eating habits, and person will gain weight. So this particular will result into further insulin resistance, and there will be what we call as a OHA failure, and person then later on will need either another group of drug or will need insulin. In renal, there is more chance of hypoglycemia. So you will have to avoid in any person who has got a CKD where the GFR is less than 50. Try to avoid sulfonylurea. Reduce the dose or stop the medicine of sulfonylurea. GI safety wise, neutral. In congestive heart failure, neutral. But in a atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, there is a question mark. So it is avoided in a cardiac patient with ischemic heart disease and high risk factors. Bone wise, no osteoporosis, no fracture. So as far as sulfonylurea is concerned, hypoglycemia, weight gain, and in CKD, major contraindication. So don't use this particular drug. Only advantage, very cheap, powerful, it reduces HbA1c almost more than even 1.5. But there is always a chance of OHA failure because of it is a secret of Gogus. So try to avoid that. And there are other group of drugs we call as non-sulfonylurea secretagogues, which are very effective only when the meal is taken. So they are utilized in a person who is doing fasting, particularly Ramzan period. So that is the only advantage of what we call as a ripaglinide. Bile sequestrum, I am not doing in detail. Only disadvantage of bile sequestrum is GI tract side effects. Lot of GI tract side effects. And because it prevents the fat soluble vitamins absorption, there is associated fat soluble vitamin deficiency. So, and costly. It is more effective for postprandial rather than fasting. So, this is almost not utilized very commonly. Bromocriptine, again same, GI tract side effects are more. So again use of bromocriptine is almost gone and very costly. So these two drugs, because of a cost factor, the HbA1c reduction is very minimal, 0.5 to 0.8 only. So again, these are not a good drug for hypoglycemic or what we call as in hyperglycemia. Now we come to insulin. As far as insulin is concerned, it is very powerful. Most powerful among all the drugs for diabetes mellitus. Depending upon the selection of insulin, depending upon the dose as well as the regime what you select, you can reduce HbA1c right from 1.8 to even more than 2.5 depending upon how you utilize the insulin. Hence, there is always a very high chance of getting hypoglycemia. So, hypoglycemia is more severe and for a longer period depending upon what insulin you are using. In a longer acting insulin, you can have hypoglycemia for a very long period. In a short acting insulin, it will be for a shorter period. But chances of hypoglycemia is very high. Because of hypoglycemia, weight gain is more. So again, this too becomes the major contraindication for use of insulin. And third factor, which is very common, that it has to be used with very caution in a person with CKD, because in CKD, insulin will not be excreted by kidney, and because the excretion becomes less, the chances of hypoglycemia also becomes more and more. So these three becomes the major contraindication, and the fourth factor, which is a contraindication, is a cost factor. So cost becomes very high, and all the recent what we call as analogs, they are costly, so they have to be used with caution in a person who are poor. So you have to think it over. Otherwise, GI safety, cardiovascular safety, and bone, it is neutral. So it is a wonderful drug, but has to be selected properly. So these three are the major contraindication. As far as amylin analogs is concerned, again, weight gain is there and GI tract side effects are there. Again, it is in an injectable form and costly. So bile sequestrum, bromocriptine, and amylin analogs are rarely being utilized because of cost factors and because of some of the side effects. So these three are not commonly utilized. Now again I am repeating. Metformin, first drug of choice. Second drug of choice can be GLP-1, SGLT2, DPP-4, or what we call as the insulin sulfonylurea. Out of which now SGLT2, DPP-4 and GLP-1 becomes the most common indication as a second line of choice. And if the person insulin requirement comes, then insulin becomes the second line of treatment after metformin, particularly if the person has got a very high HbA1c, more than 9. So insulin is always preferred. Now this is a very simple chart to show you that first choice in any person is healthy, what we call is a lifestyle modification, weight control, physical activity, that is regular exercise, aerobic exercise, and education is a must in all patients. First, what you start is a metformin. So metformin is a wonderful drug except contraindication. So if metformin is not tolerated or there is a contraindication, then only you will have to add any one of these drug, any one of this. But otherwise, the metformin is the first drug. Now, only contraindication I have already told you, that is in CKD and in a person with a severe congestive heart failure with a shock stage. In those two conditions, metformin will be contraindicated. You have a repeat checkups, regular monitoring. After 3 months of monotherapy, look at the HbA1c control. If HbA1c is more, then add the second drug. After metformin, now this sulfonylurea is preferred only because being a cheap. Otherwise, the first drug of choice is DPP4, SGLT2, GLP analogs. These three are the first drug of choice. These are all being oral. These two are oral. While GLP analogs is injectable, and only drawback of GLP analog is very high cost. And again, I have told you that it has to be used with caution with severe CKD. There are some side effects like GI tract side effects which can interfere with the use of GLP-1 receptor agonist. So these are what are the three drugs which are commonly second line. And if the person has got a very high HbA1c and there is a very high risk factors, you must use insulin as a second line, and particularly basal insulin. Now, even after 3 months, still it is not controlled after addition of second drug. You can choose the third drug. Say you have selected DPP4 first, now you can add SGLT2. Or you have selected SGLT2, now you can add DPP4. So depending upon that, you can use it. By and large, pioglitazone is not commonly utilized nowadays. And another drug, sulfonylurea, is utilized because of the cost effective. Otherwise, sulfonylurea, because of hypoglycemia and weight gain, it is less preferred. After adding a third drug, if still there is no control, so after adding DPP4, you add SGLT2 or you add what we call as GLP-1 analogs, etc. And if still there is no control, you will have to add insulins. So insulin is utilized as a fourth drug. But this particular criteria has now changed. So these are the factors which are being commonly utilized, and this is the latest one which has come in 2019. And there is a little modification in 2020. So first line of therapy is metformin, lifestyle modification, weight management, regular physical aerobic exercise, as well as education. After doing all this, and if the person has got a very high risk factors or has got established atherosclerotic cardiovascular disorders, or person has got CKD, or person has got heart failure, then you have to select this group. If none of these are there, person do not have CKD or heart failure or atherosclerotic established ASCVD is not there, then you look at the incidence of hypoglycemia, weight loss you want if a person is obese, and cost factor. Then you use these three factors. But if this is there, if there is a predominant atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, then GLP-1 is preferred. First drug of choice is GLP-1 analogs because it has been proven cardiovascular safety. And second drug of choice which is utilized is SGLT2. That's the reason why we say that SGLT2 and DPP4 inhibitors are wonderful drugs as far as cost and oral. But if person is affording, GLP-1 receptor agonist are the best drug of choice. So try to use that. And after that also, if it is not controlled, you can use DPP4 or you can add basal insulins. So this will be there. So SGLT2 and GLP-1 receptor agonist, or instead of SGLT2, you can use GLP-1 receptor agonist. So either of the two you can use, and you can add GLP-1 with SGLT2 or SGLT2 with GLP-1. In place of GLP-1, you can use DPP4. If GLP-1 is not affordable or there are major side effects. And after those two, if still you do not get a good results, straightforward you should go to what we call as basal insulins. As far as heart failure is concerned and CKD is concerned, the first drug of choice is still SGLT2. If GFR is less than 30, then it is not indicated. But SGLT2 is a wonderful drug for heart failure, even in CKD and even with cardiovascular safety. So SGLT2 inhibitor is wonderful drug for heart failure and even in a CKD up to, even they say that up to 30 GFR. So that is the first drug of choice, SGLT2. After using of a SGLT2, you can add GLP-1 analogs. But if GFR is less than 30, SGLT2 receptor agonists are not to be indicated. You can go for DPP-4 inhibitors, and in DPP-4 inhibitors, sexagliptin should not be utilized. Based in DPP-4 is linagliptin and second is tenalagliptin. So you can use either of those two. The third drug again, like advanced atherosclerosis, basal insulin is a drug of choice. Avoid as far as possible sulfonylurea. Don't use sulfonylurea with advanced or high risk factors or established atherosclerosis, heart failure and CKD. So sulfonylurea is not to be utilized. To avoid hypoglycemia, these three drugs are based: DPP-4, GLP-1 receptor agonist and SGLT2. These are the first drug of choice. This is being injectable, less utilized. Pioglitazone should be avoided because there are a lot of side effects like osteoporosis, fractures, particularly in a female, postmenopausal female, weight gain, contraindicated in congestive heart failure or compromised myocardium, decreased ejection fraction, ischemic heart disease, etc. Pioglitazones are contraindicated. So remember that. If you want to lose weight and you want to have a weight control, the first drug of choice is GLP-1 receptor agonist. Second drug of choice is SGLT2. So either of the two you have to utilize. And then you can go for DPP-4 inhibitors and metformin. As such, metformin is the first drug of choice which is being utilized. And cost factor wise, sulfonylurea becomes the first drug because it is the cheapest one. Second drug is pioglitazones. And after that, if you want to choose, then insulin becomes the drug of choice over other drugs. So this is the way you should follow, and this is the recent guidelines which has come in 2019. So try to utilize these guidelines. So I have summarized all those three guidelines. This is what is being utilized in India. We say ABCD. Depending upon the age, you select the drug. Sulfonylurea should not be utilized in a person with an old age. Younger the age, the gliptins are the first drug of choice. Second drug of choice is glinides, and then you can use GLP-1 receptor agonist, insulin, SGLT2, glitazones, etc. So these are the drug of choice as the age advances. Higher the BMI, the first drug of choice is GLP-1 receptor agonist, second drug of choice is SGLT2, then comes AGI and gliptins, that is DPP-4s. So this becomes that. An absolute contraindication is insulin, where BMI is very high. Pioglitazones, glitazones is contraindicated. Sulfonylurea is contraindicated. If person has got CKD, what we call as the first drug of choice will be gliptins. Then comes insulin, glinides, sulfonylurea is last, and glitazone, pioglitazones are absolutely contraindicated. And in a severe CKD, GLP-1 receptor agonists are also contraindicated. Ideally, in a CKD, you can use what we call as DPP-4 inhibitors like tenalagliptin, linagliptin. So those are the two drugs commonly utilized. SGLT2 wise can be utilized up to GFR 30. Less than 30, you have to think it over. Why? Insulin should be utilized with caution, and if the GFR becomes very, very less, you will have to cut down the dose of insulin. Longer the duration, insulin becomes less choice because chances of hypoglycemia is more, the benefits are less. Because longer the duration, macrovascular and microvascular complications are more. Education should be given regarding all these medications. What are the advantages, what are the disadvantages, what are the side effects, what precaution you should take, all those should be advised. As far as the cost factor is concerned, sulfonylurea is the cheapest. Second is glitazones and AGI. So pioglitazones and alpha glucosidase inhibitor. Alpha glucosidase inhibitors are costly. Even you can utilize what we call as the glinides, and you can go for gliptins, etc. These are all costly drugs. SGLT2, but now SGLT2 cost, particularly Remo, glifazin, is reduced. That's why this will come now here as second drug of choice. As far as the glycemic status is concerned, insulin and GLP-1 are the best. Second preferred drug is sulfonylurea, but always keep a precaution of hypoglycemia. And then comes SGLT2, glitazones and gliptins. While alpha glucosidase inhibitor is the poorest. To avoid hypoglycemia, you have to avoid using insulin and sulfonylurea. These two will be most dangerous one. While safest is GLP-1 receptor agonist, then gliptins, SGLT2. These three drugs are the most common drugs. So to avoid hypoglycemia, this should be utilized. So this is the chart which is being prepared, which is almost covering majority of the thing, and this is prepared by Indian doctors. So this is an Indian guidelines chart. A for age, B for BMI, C for CKD, then D for duration of diabetes mellitus, E for education, F for finance or cost, G for what we call is a glycemic control or HbA1c, and H for hypoglycemia. Still there are something which are missing, like liver functions, complications like HONG, diabetic ketoacidosis, lactic acid acidosis. In all these conditions, insulin is a must. And in hypoglycemia, you will have to stop insulin and all oral hypoglycemic agent and re-decide as person recovers from hypoglycemia. You have to include bone fractures, GI tract side effects, etc. has to be included. Sex is usually not included, pregnancy is not included in all those criteria. So all those should be included. And this is, I'm running little faster, I've already covered up all those things. Older the age, avoid what we call as mainly pioglitazone is absolutely contraindicated in older age and female in a post-menopausal period. Drug safety wise, metformin is safest, another is DPP-4 is safest. Sulfonylurea and insulin should be also avoided because there is a very high chance of hypoglycemia. Alpha glucosidase inhibitor, mainly it is avoided because of the GI tract side effects, which are as such many common in older age group. So try to keep those in mind. And person of old age should not get repeated hypoglycemia. So don't select insulin and sulfonylurea in case of older age. But if required, should be used with caution. As far as weight is concerned, we already told you, if you want to lose weight, particularly if the person is having a high BMI and obese individual, intensify lifestyle modification. Metformin is the first drug of choice. Second drug of choice is GLP receptor agonist. Plus you can use DPP-4 inhibitor, or you can use even what we call as a SGLT2 inhibitors. And if still not coming under control, bariatric surgery must be thought over. Sex wise, nothing as such main, but in a female, try to avoid pioglitazones, particularly in a post-menopausal period. Comorbid condition we already discussed. In a coronary artery disease, there are certain drugs should be avoided. Metformin, SGLT2 inhibitors, etc. are the drug of choice in case of a coronary artery disease and heart failure. To avoid hypoglycemia, you should not use the powerful drugs like insulin and sulfonylurea, should be avoided. Pioglitazone is contraindicated if the person has got a heart failure. In AMI, stop metformin, oral hypoglycemic agent, and only insulin should be utilized. Along with insulin, you should use ACE inhibitor, beta blocker, statin, and aspirin should be added in a person with a coronary heart disease, or we call as an advanced atherosclerotic coronary vascular disease. In heart failure, metformin should be used with caution, and in a person with a severe hypotension, metformin should be avoided. Avoid pioglitazone because it produces sodium and water retention and will further worsen heart failure. The best drug of choice in a heart failure is SGLT2 inhibitors, and second drug of choice we call as a incretin mimetics, that is we call as a DPP4 inhibitors, and we call what the drugs we call as a receptor agonist. Now in a case we already discussed so many times, the in a CKD, to decrease the risk of hypoglycemia, metformin should be avoided because it can increase the metformin level and produce lactic acid acidosis. The dose should be reduced. Sulfonylurea should be avoided in a person with a severe CKD. DPP4 dose has to be adjusted in a CKD, and particularly if the GFR is less than 50. You can use tenalagliptin and linagliptin even with GFR up to 30. Extenide, or what we call as GLP-1 receptor agonist, should be avoided if the GFR is less than 30. In a liver function, keep it in mind, pioglitazones leads to hepatostasis, so it should be avoided, and insulin is the best option if the disease is very severe. So in an end-stage liver disease, particularly cirrhosis with an end-stage liver disease, best drug of choice is insulin. So try to use that. Even metformin should be avoided in a person with a severe liver disease. Pioglitazone is absolutely contraindicated with a severe liver disease. So try to avoid all those drugs. To decrease hypoglycemia, we already told you, avoid insulin and sulfonylurea. And best drug of choice is SGLT2 receptor agonist, DPP4 inhibitors. You can call SGLT2 receptor blockers, inhibitors. So those three becomes the first drug of choice, and then comes what we call as a metformin. If the person has got, if the person has got HONC, diabetic ketoacidosis, lactic acidosis, insulin is a drug of choice. If the person is already having a volume overload, avoid pioglitazones. Postmenopausal female and repeated osteoporosis and fracture, avoid pioglitazones. GI tract side effects, avoid metformin, SGLT2, GLP-1 receptor agonist, because GI tract side effects are very common. Even bile sequestrum, amylin analogs, all those has got GI tract side effects. So those should be also avoided. This is whatever we have given before, same thing is repeated. In a person with a CKD, heart failure and advanced atherosclerosis, SGLT2 receptor inhibitors are the first drug of choice. Second drug of choice will be, we call as GLP-1 receptor agonist, and then comes DPP4 inhibitors. In an overweight person and obese, we already mentioned SGLT2 and GLP-1 receptor agonist. To avoid hypoglycemia, DPP4, SGLT2 and GLP-1 receptor agonists are the first drug of choice, and then you can use pioglitazone, metformin, etc. And you should avoid insulin and sulfonylurea. If you look at the cost, sulfonylurea is the first. Nowadays even SGLT2 has become relatively cheaper, so that should be another group which can be included in a cost factor also. Pioglitazones become another one. But there are a lot of contraindication for pioglitazone, so pioglitazone is slowly becoming less choice. In diabetic kidney disorders, ACE inhibitor, ARB and SGLT2 receptor, what we call as in diabetic retinopathy, these are the drugs we call as anti-growth factors. ACE inhibitor, ARB and fibrates are the drug of choice. If a person is having orthostatic hypotension, non-pharmacological drugs like midodrine should be utilized. In a person with autonomic dysfunction of GI tract like gastroparesis, metoclopramide should be added. In a diabetic neuropathy, pregabalin, gabalin and duloxetine should be used. Take care of food, very important, at a regular interval. And if a person has got a metabolic syndrome, all these four should be controlled simultaneously. Weight loss, hyperglycemia, hypertension, dyslipidemia. You should utilize all those drugs to control all those four factors. According to ADA 2015 guidelines, immunization for influenza, pneumococcal and hepatitis B should be given in a person with an age more than 65. And psychosocial assessment should be done and treatment should be given in a person particularly in an older age group who has got depression and psychosocial behavior disturbances. What will be the take home message? Is all this guideline what we have discussed is for all the people common? No. Answer will be no. That is, one size does not fit all. This is that classical example. So what you have to decide? You have to look at the patient as a whole. Decide depending upon each patient. You consider age, you consider weight, you consider BMI, you consider chances of hypoglycemia, cardiovascular safety, CKD, liver disease, all those factors should be looked in that patient. Don't look at the figure and then decide which drug is the first drug of choice. So I end my lecture here. I hope this will be very helpful to you in your private practice.